public, conversation about it, as we go through this today. I will begin with a caveat. When you ask someone to take a look at your resume or your CV and you want to get their opinions, if you ask 10 different people, you're going to get 10 absolutely different opinions about what's there. And that's okay. The important thing is when you're thinking about the resume that you're creating as a marketing document to go to market with and hopefully find that next gig or that next career move for yourself, that you're happy with it, and that the advice that you give, if there's just one or two things that you take away from that experience, that's valuable in and of itself for you to have. And so take all I say with a grain of salt. I have some experience and perhaps some cynicism about resumes and CVs that I'm happy to apply to anybody's resume as part of their job search. But what I will say, by word of comfort to any of you that are in a job search right now, is that I feel that resumes and CVs are probably too easy to fixate on as part of the job search process. Having a resume at a good enough state is probably enough to kick down the door, because the only purpose of that document is to open the door enough that you can get a conversation with the company that wants to that may be your next job opportunity. So keeping that perspective of not obsessing overly much about the resume is important. But that's being said, I think there are some things that can be done to position you a little bit better for success in the process. So I'm going to say a lot of things. I'm going to go through some of the resumes point by point here, but my hope is that you will either chime in the chat with questions you have, or if there's something I said you would like me to clarify or explain or just explore a little bit better, or if you want to call BS on me and throw a rotten tomato my way, that's fine too. But we're all in a very strange job market these days, and the recruitment process is by and large hopelessly broken. Hey, Brian, great to talk to you. The job search process is pretty broken at the moment, which is one of the reasons that Ilker and I are working on Talent Led. But hopefully you come away with with a couple of ideas, a couple of principles that might help you as you're working through your search process along the way. Welcome to everybody that just jumped in. So is my share screen? Can I make that a little bit bigger in the?
Yeah, if you hover it, you can click the three dots that says maximize.
Oh, wait a second.
The spotlight is already on this. We can see it. We can see it this size.
There we go. Okay. Just want to make sure that I don't want to give people eye strain in the process here. Wonderful. So, like anybody wants to connect with me to talk one-on-one, I'm in the Led By community, and so happy to connect with you there. Happy to connect with you on LinkedIn. If you're there, my link is here. If you want to connect up, as well as my websites that I'm engaged with. My company is Clock Tower Advisors, and Community Consultants.life is our collection of independent community consultants. So if you are part of the gig worker economy and you want to do independent consulting, talk to me about the CCC. Happy to give you a little bit of an overview of that as well. So I got about, I think, 8 or 9 resumes or CVs that people have shared with me over and before this event, and I've dropped them all into this mural board and have added free comments and notes over all of them. We can maybe kind of talk through them one by one. Some of my comments will become repetitive at some point, and so hopefully, we'll, as we see those, we can kind of skip through if they're already known quantities to us. But I'll go through that. What I will say at a high level is that most of the resumes, I think with the exception of one, were all pretty visual design, visual layouts as marketing documents, which is nice. They're beautiful, but there's a caveat around doing them that way. And I'll point you to an article on Scale.jobs. Resumes that look good, they're generally going into an applicant tracking system, and this may be known to some of you, but whenever you're submitting a resume through an ATS, they really don't like multi-column, highly visual layouts. they tend to parse them incorrectly. And so you have things like your contact information showing up in the middle of the resume document in the scan. And there are issues with that. So like before a human even sees it, the applicant tracking system has mangled your document. And so it's not presenting you to best effect. I think that it's a good idea to have a single column version of your resume so that when you are submitting through an applicant tracking system, that it's getting a clean look at what you have. And so that single column view with your name and contact information at the top, clear headings, and then it'll read it from top to bottom, and that'll get a little bit better. Yeah, you end up having to enter the information manually. I think that applicant tracking systems were designed by sadistic designers who are making us all crazy. I've never seen an ATS that I actually liked very much, but they're a practical necessity, unfortunately, for organizations that receive large numbers of resumes and CVs. They need some way to deal with the influx of information. I would say something that's maybe a good exercise to do if you haven't tried this already is ask your LLM of choice to review the resume for its ability to be scanned into an ATS, and it'll call out fixable issues for you that you can look at before you send it in. So again, that's sort of generic across the board advice about this. But I would still have a visual resume, because if you're going to have a one-on-one interview with somebody either via Zoom or in person, it's great to have something that's a little bit more of a visual marketing document available. So having both is, I think, a good idea and probably a necessity in the current market. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start looking at some of these resumes. Again, names and contact information have been obscured to protect the innocent. There are a few where there are.
This is the exciting part, Todd. Let's do it.
We're getting into it. So what I've done is I've freely dropped sticky notes around a lot of these pieces. So for the first resume here, I'll take a look at. And I think this was really nicely branded. Like what I like about the branding of it is like the nice visual, headshot with the alternate shape on there. The icons by the contact information piece that really kind of stands out. I like the fact that there's a headline for positioning yourself on the resume. I'll pull it a little closer so it's a little easier to see. I like the idea that there's a headline, so it's a little easier to see. The layout it's just pretty. It's really nicely designed. Somebody has a visual design background here. The badging of the dates of employment is really cool. I think that pops out nicely. My big criticism about the resume is it's kind of crowded. It feels pretty dense. It's a little hard to scan. And so I'll address one of the myths that I run into a lot as a recruiter, which is like, how many pages should my resume be? Should I keep it as a one-page resume? And I'm not a fan of the one-page resume. My usual advice is the resume is as long as it needs to be to tell your story. That said, that's usually between 2 and 3 pages at the most. I try to kind of keep it condensed to about that level. That's from a recruiter standpoint. I would find myself like when you're doing recruitment work, you're looking through dozens, maybe 100 or more resumes at a time, and so you are very quickly trying to scan. Okay, can I see what this person's about? Is there anything I can do to kind of put this person in the yes pile, the maybe pile, or the probably not pile? And anything that is makes it too hard to parse that information right away. If it makes me pause and say, what is this about? That's a reason for me to set it aside. So again, like a one pager that needs to be a 2-pager is a little distracting, and it kind of raises the annoyance level. Somebody's looking through the resume. So again, I would kind of let it breathe out a little bit. Again, another issue that I'm seeing here, but that I've saw with all but one of the resumes is the multi-column layout. Again, with applicant tracking systems, they don't generally scan those very well. And the stat is in the article that I shared a little bit earlier, as much as 50% of your data can end up not getting parsed in by the resume. And so think about like half of your resume never makes it into the system. That's a bit of a problem, especially if it's a machine or an AI that's evaluating your fit for a given role. Some other things here, like with the crowding of the resume, I just kind of mentioned crowded typography here. The dense layout makes it difficult for machine readers. This is something that I'll come back to again and again as I look through the resumes. I think it's good to have a skills section in a resume. What I love to see in the top third of the resume, that really critical real estate area of the page, is accomplishments or achievements. Achievement-driven resumes help me to find right away, like, what is it about this person that is unique and wonderful that they've done that's a real achievement that's going to make me want to set up that initial screening conversation with the candidate. Also having an about me section, variously called like a professional summary, a profile, whatever you call the headline is probably fine. But keep it to maybe a paragraph on the resume. If you're going to get into a deeper bio, I would say that probably belongs in your email introduction or your cover letter or whatever kind of preamble that, where they give you additional space to talk about your skills or your background, something to do. So this is lovely, but it's probably a bit too long. And then again, I think very appropriately, education, things like education, certifications, even skills lists and proficiencies, I kind of have a tendency to want to drop those to the bottom of the resume. They're important, but they're less important than your work experience and your achievements that you've had. So again, this is me, giving my opinions and my nitpicks about what is a pretty good resume overall, and one that does the job. And so again, I'm not calling out this or any of the others as bad examples. They're just, it's how you're choosing to tell your story, the kinds of things that you're emphasizing or lifting to the top of the resume. The only other thing that I'll mention is, and this is going to vary based on geography, is having a photograph on your resume. A lot of HR departments don't like that, for discrimination reasons. There may be some concerns about that, and I'd be wary about including something like that on the resume. It is a nice visual addition. It's especially like if you've already been called in for an interview based on a text-based ATS-friendly version of a resume that you sent in without this graphic on it, and you're going in for an interview and you want to be remembered, go to town. Maybe put it on there. But my strong suspicion is that most HR departments still don't like to have a face on the resume. Francisco, you had a question for me.
Mostly just like my personal experience on this photo thing, because I have been 10 years in the UK now, and at the beginning I never even imagined this kind of racism, prejudice, no. But then after 5 years here, I started to apply for certain things with my photo on it, and I never got any kind of reply back. And then I thought, why if there is anything or something or someone has something against non-native English speakers? That was my first thought, because 5 years ago my English was okay. Today still okay, but at least I can survive, right? So I was always wondering if there is kind of a certain discrimination or whatever, right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's the reason that I think a lot of HR departments prefer you don't have anything on there at all. Like they want to make sure that their practices are not discriminatory. I mean, the world has changed a bit because everybody who's in the job market right now, like if they don't have a LinkedIn profile, I'm a little suspicious of them.
Yeah, exactly.
That's sort of become like the default place where people, put up their public resume to the world. So yes, I could definitely go to your LinkedIn profile and see a picture there, but is it appropriate on what's being submitted into a system? Like I think a lot of organizations just, by way of managing risk to the organization, prefer to kind of leave that out. They
Keep the bias away.
Yeah, keep the bias away. And I am somewhat cynical about HR departments. I was a recruiter, and I view the role of a recruiter as very different than the role of a human resources specialist. HR exists for this, and this is my mean-spirited, cynical view of HR. It only exists to keep the company from being sued. That's its only reason for being. Recruitment is more of a sales role. I want you to come in and work for the organization because my incentive is based around getting you opted in to the organization, and I want you to be able to join. HR that does recruiting has got like a split focus. Like, I don't want to be sued, but I want you to come into the organization. And so like there's issues around the way that our hiring practices are set up that it can be very frustrating, as we all know, for any of us who've ever been in the job search.
Makes sense.
Right. Should I move on to the next resume?
Let's go.
Yeah.
So let's go with mine. I'm curious.
You want to go with yours? Okay. All right. So
my name is there. So that is mine, guys. So I don't care about not disclosing my name. No.
Well, so what I liked was, I think you're taking a different tack of doing a landscape resume. Oh, I'm sorry, Nicole. Well, maybe we
she was next. Let's go for Nicole. I'm
going to be respectful of your time. So was this you, Nicole? Is that you? Awesome.
Maybe.
Shout if it wasn't. So anyway, again, like clean, readable font, liked it. If you're going to have the 2-column layout, I like the visual distinction of the orange here on the left. It helps that to pop out. So good use of color. It pops on the sidebar. Orange is a good buying color for anybody that's on e-commerce. We'll probably say that's a good conversion color. So a couple of things here. So I don't know how, I guess you're not super long out of school, but having the GPA, grade point average on here is something I think after a couple of years of work experience, I would probably drop that out. I don't think you need to worry about that in the space. I would say this is one that comes up as a common question. I don't see it as much on resumes or CVs anymore, but references available upon request. It's just it's wasted space. You use that for something else. So it's sort of an old holdover from the old days of resumes and CVs. But I know as an HR professional, I can ask you for your references. I don't need to have it on the resume. It's just kind of an old ritual that doesn't have relevance anymore. Kind of going back to the top here. So what was missing for me on this resume was some kind of tight professional summary or a headline. I think that having something like that on there is good. I do like the use of the iconography for the LinkedIn. This is that person's general location, where they are, and then an email and phone number. That those are necessities on the space. I will say that with a lot of professional summaries, and we'll maybe see that I think there was one good example, and there were a couple of examples of ones that I think could be sharpened. Professional summaries are nice as long as they are unique. If I can read your summary and I still have no idea who you are or what you specialize in, I would say it's not serving you well. So I'm a fan of achievement or accomplishment driven summaries that kind of highlight things that you've done. It's okay to repeat something that appears in your work history. If that's something that should be elevated that you've done, where you had a 100% retention rate on a 50,000 member community, or some other quantifiable achievement that you can put into play that demonstrates with proof something that you are asserting about your background. The thing that I do generally talk about staying away from in professional summaries is generic sorts of things like, hey, I'm a great team player, or I've got a wonderful sense of humor, or things like those are great, but they're impossible for me to quantify. And so it's a claim without evidence. And I think there are better uses for the space in your resume than to assert those things. Let that come out in the process of the interview. I love that, this resume is starting with bullet points around quantified success, 1,500 plus startup community as a driver of activation. That's great. I do think this is a little bit crowded and hard to read. So, and that might just be a spacing issue with the typography in here, where you might want to have like a minor amount of space between each paragraph or bulleted item. So I think that would be helpful. And then this is something that I come back to again and again. Bullets are kind of a necessary evil in resumes. Everybody uses them. They tend to be overused. And so I'll talk about it as death by bullets. Most user experience people will tell you like between 4 and 7 items is as much as somebody can kind of hold in their head at a time. I would say most of the time on resumes, I would make 5 bullets a hard limit on any item that you have there. If you have more than that, it's just so easy to glaze over them. And chances are some of those things could either be combined or dropped off the list, or they're more achievement, or they're more responsibility oriented bullets that talk about what you did, not what you achieved. And so and this is again a personal preference. On a resume, I really like it when there's maybe a short narrative at the beginning that is maybe a sentence that describes what your responsibilities were, what you did in the job, but then saving the bullet points for actual achievements, things that can be quantified or things that you're particularly proud of that you want to call out in the experience. So again, good resume. I think margins are a little narrow. They're not bad. I kind of got the feeling that this kind of got jammed into one page, and it could probably be like a page and a half, maybe a little bit longer. Resume, a little easier on the eyes to see. But overall, just a couple of minor things, on that one. Any questions, comments, clarifications?
Not yet. I think that we are still warming up. Right. A bit shy. I would say everyone. We are all trying to like squeeze too much stuff in one page, right? Yeah. That is like the trap. How I can like make everything in there. Like I noticed that now. Yeah. And I remember my previous version. I can share it also. That is very, very close to this one. My previous one, very like packed, and how I can make it legible. And yeah.
So, there's a lot of worry about like trying to get it onto a one page. Like you can have a one pager marketing document. Like that's sort of a quick high level. Easy to consume. Like, and I, as a consultant, I have a one pager, that I offer, but I'm not trying to stuff too much onto that thing, at once. Yeah, surely. Yeah. Right.
Angela, I wanted to. Oh, sorry. I missed that. Sorry. Shirley, go on.
Yeah, okay, thank you. No, I just wanted to lead a little bit with this question that Francisco made, because, and especially like watching this particular CV that you have on screen, because do you think, Todd, that if you are creating a CV that is specific for a sorry for my English, it's specific for a role, like for example, if we are looking for working in community and we want to direct everything towards our future in the community, is it necessary to put the previous experience that we had working in different areas that don't have anything to do with community, or is it just clutter that maybe we can just take out?
I love the question. So I would say, and this comes up on one or two of the CVs that I took a look at. There are, if you were applying for a community role and you have work experience that's maybe not relevant to that work, like I might still leave it on there, but I would severely limit the amount of space that I'm spending on it. I would definitely pull back on that. And then there's a question of like, if if you've been in the marketplace for a long time and you have a long job history, like an old guy like me, how much of that do you actually want to keep, visible over time? Like you could maybe go back 10 years, beyond that, maybe it's just a listing of, jobs in the years that you worked in them. And if somebody wants more detail about them, they can ask about it. Unless there's something highly relevant to the community role that you're applying for, I would probably downplay it or edit it out, from consideration. And, if, a lot of the ATSs that you end up having to apply through, they might ask you to manually enter that stuff anyway, so that they can see what your full job history is. So I would leave it for them to ask for it rather than to offer like that full history right away.
Makes sense.
Okay, perfect.
Angela, I saw you had a question as well.
I don't know if it's a question. I think it's a complaint, and I don't want to bring complaints here. So
we are friends here, Angela. No problem. Feel free.
Yeah, fair.
This is great.
Yeah. So I just I have done a lot of different things. I've been in the startup communities for almost 30 years now, and specialization and being able, like, how to stand out to an organization, that is getting harder and harder. Just because I've done a lot of things and I can have all of those catchphrases to catch somebody's attention, like I can do anything, but it doesn't really tell my story. And I'm feeling more and more cynical about applying to anything that is public. And I'm investing a lot more in relationships and people knowing me as a way to get in the door.
I don't think that's cynical at all. I think that's realistic. I 100% endorse that approach. Like I am not a fan of leading with the resume, by applying to public roles. I think it's an exercise in frustration with the way that systems and AI is currently set up to screen people out of the process. We're being screened out by tech, which is a huge problem. And I understand, like, they're dealing with a problem of it being 10 times easier to submit a resume today because of AI, but it's 10 times harder for them to sift through that. But so my view now is what it has been 10, even 15 years ago, which is you focus on networking relationships. If you're in a job search, that's about having, you got to set it for yourself what you're comfortable doing. But like I said, like, if you're in a full-blown search, I would be aiming at 5 quality in-person meetings a day, just to talk to people about your search, just meeting new people, broadening your connections, finding out what companies, maybe if they're working at a company, they can give you an informational interview or at least get to know them. And then you're meeting people who want to network, ideally, like they want to broaden, who they know. And you never know, like it could be somebody that you think is a low quality connection that turns you onto your next job. And so I think that you've got a better chance of getting hits with that than applying along with 5,000 other people for an open role that appears on an HR site.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So let's go ahead and move on. So Francisco, you want me to kind of look at you next?
Kill me, please. Kill me. Let's go.
All right. So my biggest criticism about this format, as like the slide deck approach to it, is that it feels a little padded. It feels like it's breathing too much, like as opposed to like too dense. This is a little too spread out. And if you're going to do this, like, you've got more room to expand on your story here. Like this is, like having just your profile on one page, like I get it, there's emphasis here, but I think you could kind of visually expand upon that a little bit more. With maybe some career accomplishments, like some of the things that I've seen on other resumes. Let me grab one that I thought was, there's a couple of them that did this. Here's like having a block with some quantified achievements, really neat. I mean, I think that shows up great And so like one of the other resumes did that as well. And here the CV owner, has some great, number driven things that kind of catch the eye right away. So I would enhance what you did on the profile with some of those career accomplishment, kind of pieces. I think that would play really well. Secondly, and I bring this up on a lot of different resumes in here. Page X of X is a good idea on multi-page resumes or CVs. And this is a very old school analog preference that I have, and I'll explain why. Somebody's going to interview you, whether it's face-to-face or online. A lot of people will still print out the resume so that they can write on the resume during the course of the interview. If they print out the resume and you've got a 6-page resume, but then only 3 pages print out, and they grab it off the printer, they can see at a glance that it's 1 of 6 pages at the bottom of each page, or 2 of 6 pages, or 3 of 6 pages. They can tell if there's stuff missing. I need to know how long that entire document is. And so just having that there is just a good visual anchor for people. I know it's such an old school thing, but you know what? I guarantee there's people who probably still do. And you know what? Like I'm a notebook guy. Like I talk to a lot of people every day that keep a notebook of things, and that they want to print out stuff. We actually print more paper now than we did before the electronic document revolution. So crazily enough, I think a lot of people still do print. So anyways, that's another piece to maybe think about. Core skills are, this is nice. I mean, I like the visual layout, Francisco. But I would say like you could get more granular with this. I'm an old role-playing game nerd, and so I think of resumes almost as like a character sheet in a role-playing game. Like you're giving me all the stats here, but you're not telling me what level of proficiency you're at. So like give me a score, give me like number of dots, of comfort level with each of these things. Like, find a way to make a little bit more use of the real estate. If you're gonna go this direction, with a CV, I think you can kind of give a little bit more of a sense of like level of expertise with each of these.
Love it.
And then I think one of the things you did really well here was just restraint on bullet usage. I think you limited yourself to 3 bullets for each one. That's great. It almost went a little too far in the other direction. That's a little too spare. I think you can maybe expand a little bit further, on what's here. And then I think these most recent 3 pieces, they would really benefit from some kind of quantified accomplishment. Like what kind of numbers can you add to the story here? And even if it's just the first bullet, like that's the little mental trick that I would play with this. Like if you don't have a lot of numbers to add to your work experience here, at least make sure that the first bullet has something quantified in it, because that's the meat that somebody's looking for. Like, hey, what did they actually do in the role? How are they able to move the needle in some way? And then, so like, I think this one you did really nicely, the scaled ARR from 4 to 10 million. Wow, that's amazing. And that's really helpful to see. And then, so then I made the comment here. I think that, the terseness is good. Visually, it looks great. But I think maybe there's a little more narrative that you can
Nice. That's great.
And certifications. I assume that's a link. And then, just overall, I think you can maybe combine or maybe make it a little more dense.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. Thank you. It's amazing.
Yeah. Great. So why don't I go to? I'm gonna kind of move fast through some of these because I know we're down to less than 20 minutes here, and I want to be able to answer any questions. As you have questions, please raise a hand or add into the chat as you have been. What I noted in here, let's see. Again, nice visuals. I've already commented on use of pictures. I would be careful. Like if this is your human readable version of the resume, be careful about contrast for people that maybe have low vision and need high contrast colors, just as you would in a website design. This gray, the white on gray, and the pale, it's a tan on gray is. Makes it a little bit hard to read in here. Love the use of quantified achievement in this resume. This is great. Love the use of bolding to track the eye. That's really terrific as well. This is something that I saw once or twice in the examples that were shared with me. Right justified text. Justification on text, it might look neat, and like a reason to use it is narrow columns, because the original thinking behind that was in journalism. You would use justified columns when you have really narrow columns, and so it was easier for the eye to track with that. But I think all of the reading studies that are out there, and this comes from the Nilson Norman group, no relation to me, but the usability experts talk about the brain tends to track where it is in reading by that ragged right-hand margin, which means left justification is your best bet. Full right justification, where it kind of spaces things out, makes it a little bit harder to read on the page. And then anything else that I said here, use of bullets could maybe be reduced a little bit. And again, as I mentioned, differentiating between your responsibilities and your achievements, like using the responsibilities as like a sentence or so preamble of what you did in the job, and then saving the bullets for achievements or accomplishments that can be quantified, I think is a little bit more powerful. Someone on their resume did that, and I wanted to call it out. I got to find the right person. I think it might have been this one. Yeah, so you can see exactly what I'm talking about on this person's resume. This is what I'm talking about. So they in gray, and again, it's that high contrast question. Is that going to stand out enough? But I like what they did here, which was you've got sort of the description. This is what I did. These were my responsibilities, and then these are accomplishments that I did, and that was saved for bullet points. I think that's kind of powerful as a way, and it stands out from the usual way of people just kind of dropping bullet. So it's a little bit of a visual distinguisher. All right, going back to that one, just make sure I covered off on everything. I apologize for anyone that gets motion sick as I go through Miro here. Yeah, I think that was everything I had on that one. Oh, I did say, this is important. So consistency in font size and like typography use is important. I noticed here as I was kind of looking down through this left-hand column, the font got tinier and tinier as we got down to the bottom of the document here. And so I would just say, hopefully I didn't lose my connection with you. Did I blip out for a second? Okay, good. Anyways, good. Keeping the font, like I can tell there's a difference in the font size between this and this little bit over here. And I recognize, like, you were trying to show like most important things are in the bigger fonts and then it shrinks down, but it has an impact on how you look at and view the resume. And so I would keep your body text a consistent font size when using it. Next one, I love the typography. I wish I could show you her name on this because it was beautiful. I love the visual design.
I don't mind, Todd. You can show.
Thank you. Yeah, so surely this is beautiful. I love the distinction. Like it stands out as a visually distinct resume. I think that's really well done. Very distinct, very easy to read. Again, my same comment about use of pictures on here. Bam, leading with accomplishments, powerful. That's really great. And then leading with quantified accomplishments, really solid, really well done. Sparing use of bullets, really well done. Your about section, this is probably long enough for a profile. I think you could let it breathe across the page a little bit more. And then the what I bring section, that's kind of unique and really neat. And then I also like the use of tags. It looks very tech. Very easy to scan, easy to read, and then inclusion of proficiency levels in your skills. That's cool. I would almost do that with some of these other skills as well. And I think like you've got a lot of room to breathe. There's unused real estate on the resume. So this unused space could lead someone to the perception, if they're looking at this, they can say, this person's really entry level, with what they're doing. I think you've got more room on the page to do more, and so that might mean bringing up your font size a little bit, or expanding upon some of the responsibilities and accomplishments that you've done here. So like as much as I love the visual layout, I felt like you were almost too compact in the approach that you used here. But then the last thing that I'll call out that I thought was really cool and different was just sort of a personal statement at the bottom here. This is cool. I rarely, if ever, have seen these on resumes and CVs. And I think, for me, it played really well because it's giving me a reason to have a conversation with you about like why you included that as a statement. You're almost sort of including it as a mantra or like part of a personal statement of philosophy about your work. So I think that's really cool. Moving on. So this this user, this resume, this is an example, the only one that we had of a single column layout that was here. And this one is actually very machine readable. I don't know if I see you on there. Trish, by the way, I don't know if you know me, but Noel says hello. I don't know.
Yes, hi. Yeah, give me tips on how to get this job.
Yeah, awesome.
Do it. This is the spirit.
I love it. So very good. One of the things I noticed was missing, and because this is obscured, you can't see it, but I think your LinkedIn link belongs on here. That was one of the things that was listed here. But this is a very machine readable resume. So it'd be great for submitting through an ATS system. Oh yeah, and so asking about volunteer experience. I think volunteer experience is highly relevant. As long as it's relevant to the job that you're going for, I think that's great. So the summary. So one of my thoughts about the summary was you've talked about a lot of things you've done, but I'd love if you could work some accomplishments in there, because there's some great things that you've done in your experience as a membership and as a community manager that I think could be pulled up into the summary to make it a little bit more distinctive. And then I think the list of core competencies is fine, but I almost my brain ran together a little bit on this, because I wanted to see like are there categories of can I break this out by way of tools or like strategic business competencies? Maybe there's a way to further subdivide that list and get it out there. Again, I would rather have these competency lists at the end of the resume and have this area reserved for like career level, like top accomplishments, top achievements in the resume. So I would maybe think about that. More quantification of accomplishments is great. I've talked about that at some length on some of the other resumes. Same thoughts here. And again, too many bullets. If we can kind of get this reduced to something manageable, I think
Okay.
Those would all be good. I don't think I had any other new comments on it aside from that. I mean, you got a great work history. Obviously, American Society for Quality is a great organization. And then, the other work that you've done since then has been really impressive too. So, again, for anybody in it, if you want to talk, one-on-one about your job search, so far I'm happy to have those conversations as well.
Do you have a recommendation on like how many bullets should I have? Just like 4 bullets or something for each?
I would limit it to no more than 4 or 5.
Okay.
I think more than that, like when I'm sitting in front of somebody, whenever I was doing a resume, sitting in front of somebody to scan that number of bullets, your brain just blur. It just gets off after a amount of time. So like I would front load the achievement based stuff. Anything that's describing your responsibilities, again, I would say, treat it like the resume example that I showed over here, where you've got, a description of what you did, and then saving the bullets. Again, there's probably too many bullets on this one as well. But again, I would take that as more of a model to go with. All right, and then let's see, Will. I like the strong divisions between sections. I think that's helpful. I thought this layout was a little difficult to scan for core proficiencies. I get what you're doing, but it just doesn't track with the eye that well. Again, personal opinion. Qualification profile. I was a little puzzled by the title, but I get what it is. It's fine. And then, I think, you're probably catching the theme of stuff that I'm typically calling out: quantified accomplishments, reducing the number of bullet points, kind of going and making sure that you've got pagination turned on. So all pretty solid. Yeah, this was another case of the right justified margin, making it a little tougher to read. Some of these. Again, these are minor tweaks, but they can make a big difference. For people that are scanning a resume quickly. Let's see. I'm just looking for new things that I haven't mentioned before. These skills and technologies areas. Again, I think to the extent that you can break them out and show proficiency levels, can make better use of those kinds of spaces. This was a question of how far back you want to go in a job history, because this person's job history goes back to 2010. I might you could even put in a line that says, for earlier career history, earlier career history will be furnished on request, or you could just leave that off entirely and just go back, so far. This person's gone back, to 2014. That's probably far enough. If you are going to include these things, these are too many bullet points to include for earlier career. So I think you could probably leave those out. And then, this was new, and I did want to mention this, adding your interests or hobbies. I think that's perfectly fine. If you've got room in the resume to add something at the end, it gives a little flavor for your background. It's a conversation starter. If it's something that has a potential to create some rapport with the interviewer, absolutely do it. Like I still remember years later, somebody that I came across on their resume that said they were a medalist in parachuting. They weren't just a hobbyist. They had medaled in jumping out of planes. And I was like, that was a great topic of conversation. Let me know them a little bit better. It told me a little bit about their appetite for risk and things that they would do. So I would definitely encourage, adding a little personal color, a little personality, to your work. And then I think the final resume here, I don't think I had anything else too new. Again, this was another landscape layout. Nice use of bold text to highlight accomplishments. Again, anything that kind of helps pop. People read resumes like they read the web, they skim. So being able to track in on things like that is really important. Competency categories, this is good. And I like that she broke out, platforms, tools, and then business competencies. And then one of the things she did that I thought was really effective was further back in her career, she reduced the number of bullets, just to some basic kinds of things. So anyways, I know I've talked a blue streak in the course of this conversation here, but I would love any questions, thoughts, ideas, Rotten Tomatoes that you want to throw. That's what I thought of the other resumes.
Nice. First, I just want to say thank you, Todd. That was great. We learned a lot. So we have a question from Krusty. It says the question, what is your thought on cover letters?
Oh, yeah. I think if you were invited to submit a cover letter, I would absolutely take advantage of that. That's more room for you to expand upon your story, and you can actually engage in some real storytelling with a cover letter. I think there is a format about doing a cover letter that is useful, whether your cover letter is an informal email or it's an additional attachment. Again, it depends on how you're invited to submit your resume. But I think that having a great intro that expresses your interest in that specific role is a good opening paragraph. Then talking about pointing to things in your resume or CV in the course of that covering letter that expands upon things in the CV or points out things to look at in the CV that are relevant, you feel are relevant to the experience of the area, and then closing by expressing interest and availability, for interviewing for the role. Pretty simple 3-column format, maybe with some bullet points in the middle of it. But that I think it's good to use if you're invited to and have the opportunity to include it. Hey, glad you could join. Anything else?
I think we are good. We are good.
This was a rare chance for me to stretch my resume review muscles after a few years. So
That's great. Okay, we are on time. I'm going to stop the